What if I told you that love, the force we glorify, the feeling we chase, is nothing more than nature's cruel trick? A deception so intricate, so deeply ingrained in our psyche, that we fail to see it for what it truly is, a mechanism of control. Schopenhauer, the philosopher of pessimism, saw love not as a divine gift, but as a calculated ploy by nature, designed to ensure the survival of the species at the cost of individual happiness. You believe you're in love. You believe you found your soulmate. But what if I told you, you were merely a puppet? Your desires, your longing, your attraction, all orchestrated by forces beyond your understanding. This is not just philosophy, this is your life unraveling before your eyes. The biological prison. Schopenhauer argued that what we call love is simply the will to life, the blind, irrational force that drives all living beings to survive and reproduce. This force does not care about your happiness, your dreams, or your well-being. It only cares about one thing, ensuring that your genes are passed on. Have you ever wondered why we are drawn to certain people, why we fall in love so deeply, so irrationally? It is not because of fate, nor is it because of cosmic alignment. It is because your body, your subconscious, has calculated, without your permission, the genetic compatibility of a potential mate. You believe you are choosing love. But in reality, nature is choosing for you. You are not in control. You never were. The deception of romantic ideals. Society has sold us the dream of eternal love, of perfect companionship. Fairy tales whisper of soulmates, movies sell us grand gestures, and poetry immortalizes passion. But Schopenhauer shatters this illusion. He tells us that love is not meant to make us happy, it is meant to manipulate us into fulfilling nature's agenda. Think about it. The greatest loves are often the most painful. They consume you, destroy you, make you lose all sense of self. If love was meant to bring joy, why does it so often end in suffering? Because suffering is necessary. It ensures attachment. It ensures that you will fight for your love, that you will bear children, that you will continue the cycle. Love is the bait, reproduction is the trap. And once nature has what it wants, once the duty of reproduction is complete, the passion fades. The illusion breaks. The cycle repeats with the next generation of unsuspecting victims. Comedy of attraction. Look around you. Notice how certain traits are universally attractive: symmetry, strength, fertility. Do you think this is a coincidence? Schopenhauer would say otherwise. These preferences are embedded within us, guiding our desires, ensuring that the healthiest genes are passed on. A man is drawn to a woman with youthful beauty, not because he loves her, but because she represents fertility. A woman is drawn to a man with strength and dominance, not because he is her soulmate, but because he represents protection and survival. We call it chemistry. We call it connection. But it is nothing more than an ancient biological script, written long before we even existed. Even your heartbreak, your longing, your sleepless nights, these are not poetic tragedies. They are survival mechanisms, keeping you tethered to nature's agenda. Breaking free from the illusion. If love is a trap, a trick, then what is the solution? Schopenhauer offers a grim answer: detachment. To see love for what it is. To understand that true happiness is not found in another person, but in escaping the cycle altogether. The rarest individuals are those who break free, the ones who do not seek validation in romance, who do not let nature dictate their fate. They are the ones who see beyond the illusion, who choose a life of purpose over a life of blind desire. But the question remains, are you willing to wake up? Or will you remain a willing pawn in nature's grand deception? The suffering that drives desire. Schopenhauer believed that all desire stems from suffering. The moment you crave something, you are in pain. Love, then, is not a source of joy but of deep suffering, because it creates an insatiable need. When you long for someone, you are tormented by their absence. When you have them, you are tormented by the fear of losing them. The cycle never ends. Our world is filled with people chasing love, mistaking it for salvation. They believe that finding the one will bring them peace. But true peace only comes from within, from realizing that love is not a solution but a distraction. Schopenhauer saw those who sought love as prisoners, forever chasing a ghost that would never bring fulfillment. He believed that only through renunciation, through the rejection of these desires, could one achieve true liberation. Love as a mirage. Imagine wandering through a desert, dying of thirst. In the distance, you see an oasis. You rush toward it, believing that salvation is near, only to realize it was nothing more than a mirage. Love operates the same way. It promises happiness but delivers longing. It promises fulfillment but delivers dependency. It promises eternity but delivers impermanence. Those who see through this illusion do not become bitter. They become free. They understand that love is not an ultimate truth, it is merely another force of nature, another chain to keep humanity bound to the endless cycle of reproduction and survival. What comes after love? If love is a trick, then what should we pursue instead? Schopenhauer's answer is simple: wisdom, purpose, and self-mastery. Those who escape the illusion of love do not fall into despair. They rise above it. They focus on their own development, on understanding the deeper truths of existence. They cultivate inner strength, refusing to be manipulated by forces beyond their control. They seek a higher meaning, one that is not dictated by fleeting desires. True power lies not in finding love, but in transcending the need for it. The self and the will to life. Schopenhauer's philosophy is rooted in the concept of the will to life, an insatiable force that drives all living beings. This blind, irrational force compels us to reproduce, to survive, and to perpetuate the species. It does not care about individual happiness, comfort, or fulfillment. The will to life is like an unstoppable river that sweeps us all along, and love is one of its most powerful currents. When we fall in love, we are not falling into the arms of a partner, but rather into the arms of nature's greatest trick. We are deceived into thinking that the person we are in love with is the one who will bring us fulfillment. But in reality, that person is simply a vessel, a temporary carrier of the genes that nature wants to propagate. The love we feel is not for the person, but for the idea of reproduction and survival. Our identity, our desires, and even our very perception of reality are shaped by this will. We think we are making independent choices, but in reality, we are slaves to a deeper force, a force that controls us with such precision that we cannot even see it. This is the tragedy of the human experience. We believe we are free, but we are trapped in the cycle of desire, a cycle that repeats itself endlessly. And love, that most cherished of human experiences, is no more than a tool used by nature to ensure that we fulfill our biological imperatives. The myth of the romantic ideal. The romantic ideal is the cornerstone of our cultural narrative. It is the belief that love, in its purest form, will lead to happiness, fulfillment, and everlasting joy. This myth has been propagated by poets, artists, and filmmakers for centuries. We have been taught that love is the ultimate goal of human existence, the thing that makes life worth living. But Schopenhauer challenges this notion. He tells us that love, as we know it, is not a source of happiness, but a source of misery. He sees love as a blind compulsion, one that drags us into relationships that are ultimately painful and destructive. When we fall in love, we are not pursuing a harmonious connection with another person, we are simply chasing an illusion, a temporary escape from the fundamental suffering of existence. Love does not bring joy. It brings suffering, longing, and pain. Schopenhauer believed that love's role was to create a sense of attachment, to bind us to another person long enough to fulfill the biological imperative of reproduction. Once that purpose is served, the intensity of love fades, and we are left with the harsh reality that love was never the answer to our deepest needs. The suffering of desire. Desire is at the core of the human condition. It is the force that drives us to pursue love, to seek companionship, to yearn for connection. But desire is also the source of our greatest suffering. When we desire something, we are in pain. We feel a deep emptiness inside of us, a void that can only be filled by the object of our desire. In the context of love, this desire is even more intense. We long for the person we love, and in that longing, we experience a profound sense of emptiness. But even once we have that person, the suffering continues. We fear losing them, and in that fear, we are once again gripped by desire. Schopenhauer believed that this cycle of desire and suffering was inescapable. The moment we achieve one desire, another arises to take its place. And so, we are forever trapped in a state of longing, constantly seeking fulfillment but never truly finding it. Love is no exception. It is a constant source of yearning, a cycle of hope and disappointment. The wisdom of renunciation. In his later works, Schopenhauer advocated for renunciation, the act of rejecting the desires and attachments that bind us to the world. He believed that true freedom comes not from fulfilling our desires, but from transcending them altogether. This, he argued, was the path to wisdom and inner peace. Renunciation does not mean withdrawing from life altogether. It means recognizing that our desires are not the key to happiness, and that true fulfillment lies in something far deeper. It means learning to live in harmony with ourselves, free from the constant pull of desire, and embracing the present moment. This path is not for everyone. It requires a deep understanding of the nature of suffering and the willingness to confront the darkness within. But for those who are able to walk this path, the rewards are profound. They find peace, clarity, and a deeper connection to the world around them. The will to life, the ultimate force. Schopenhauer's concept of the will to life is central to his philosophy. He saw this force as the driving power behind all existence, a blind, relentless force that seeks only to perpetuate itself. The will is not concerned with morality, happiness, or fulfillment. It is driven by an insatiable need to continue the cycle of life, through birth, death, and reproduction. This force, according to Schopenhauer, compels us to engage in behaviors that seem irrational, even destructive, but ultimately serve the greater purpose of survival. We may think we are in control of our lives, but the truth is that the will to life guides our every action, from our desire for food and shelter to the most intense emotions we experience, including love. Love, from this perspective, is not a noble or transcendent feeling but a biological imperative, a compulsion driven by the need to reproduce. It is the will to life that makes us believe we are in love with someone, but in reality, we are simply responding to an instinctual drive to ensure the continuation of our species. Love and the objectification of others. In Schopenhauer's view, love is often a process of objectification. When we fall in love, we do not truly see the other person for who they are, we see them as a means to fulfill our desires, particularly our need to reproduce. We objectify them, reducing them to a mere vessel for the continuation of the species. This objectification is not limited to romantic love, it extends to all forms of human desire. We often objectify people in our quest to fulfill our needs, whether it's the need for companionship, validation, or affection. In the case of romantic love, we transform the other person into an idealized object, projecting our desires and fantasies onto them. But this projection is inherently flawed because it is based not on the reality of the other person, but on our own psychological needs and biological imperatives. Schopenhauer's philosophy invites us to recognize the illusion of love, to see it for what it truly is, a biological strategy designed to keep us tethered to the cycle of reproduction. Love, in this sense, is not about connection, unity, or transcendence, it is about fulfilling nature's ultimate goal, the illusion of the ideal partner. One of the most powerful deceptions that love offers us is the illusion of the ideal partner. We are conditioned to believe that there is someone out there who is our perfect match, someone who will complete us, make us whole, and offer us everlasting happiness. This idea has been reinforced by culture, by the media, and by centuries of romantic tradition. But Schopenhauer would argue that this idea is deeply misguided. The notion of an ideal partner is based on the fallacy of completion, the belief that another person can fill the emptiness within us. This emptiness, however, is not something that can be filled by another person. It is an inherent aspect of our existence, a byproduct of the will to life itself. Our desires are endless, and no single person can ever satisfy them completely. When we seek our ideal partner, we are not seeking true connection or understanding, we are seeking to fulfill an illusion, a fantasy constructed by our own desires. The reality is that no person can live up to this ideal, and when we eventually realize this, the love we once felt often fades, leaving us disillusioned and empty. The path to liberation. While love may be an illusion, and desire a relentless force that drags us through life, Schopenhauer did offer a path to liberation. This path, however, is not found in love, nor in the fulfillment of our desires, but in renunciation and detachment. By recognizing the futility of our desires and embracing a life of simplicity, we can find a kind of peace that transcends the suffering inherent in existence. To achieve this, we must cultivate awareness of the will and its influence on our lives. We must recognize that our desires are not ours, but products of a deeper, blind force. Once we understand this, we can begin to free ourselves from the cycle of craving and attachment. True freedom, Schopenhauer believed, comes from renouncing the will, from accepting the impermanence of all things, and from finding peace in the present moment. As we come to the end of this exploration into Schopenhauer's philosophy, we must confront a truth that is both sobering and liberating. Love, as we have been taught to understand it, is nothing more than a trick, a biological ruse designed to entangle us in the cycle of reproduction, to keep us bound to the very forces that govern our existence. The romanticized version of love that we seek is a mere illusion, a reflection of our deepest desires projected onto another, a temporary satisfaction that only fuels the endless cycle of craving and suffering. Schopenhauer, in his radical pessimism, does not offer an easy way out. He does not promise that love will be the answer to our pain, nor that fulfilling our desires will bring us lasting happiness. Instead, he challenges us to look beyond the veil of illusion and recognize the inherent suffering that defines our existence. Love, in its most genuine form, is not a path to fulfillment but a chain that keeps us tethered to the relentless will to life, the blind force that drives us to continually seek, never to find. Yet, within this grim outlook lies a powerful freedom, the freedom to renounce this cycle, to release ourselves from the grip of our desires and the false promises of love. It is through awareness and detachment that we can begin to break free from the tyranny of the will. By accepting the impermanence of all things, embracing the present moment, and seeking liberation through aesthetic experience and contemplation, we can rise above the endless striving that traps us in a perpetual state of dissatisfaction. In the end, Schopenhauer's message is not one of despair but of profound liberation. He does not offer us a romanticized view of life or love but a path toward inner peace, found not through external fulfillment, but through acceptance of life's tragic nature and the relinquishment of our desires. It is in this freedom that we can discover a true sense of happiness, a happiness that transcends the fleeting illusions of love and desire, a happiness rooted in the awareness of our own will, and the courage to rise above it. Love, as we know it, may never be the answer. But through renunciation and awareness, we can step into a higher state of being, where peace and liberation are not defined by what we seek from the world, but by the strength to let go of what we never needed in the first place, and in that, perhaps, we find the truest form of freedom, one that is independent of love, independent of desire, and independent of the endless, cyclical nature of life itself.